Welcome to the Life of Hair. My name's James Atkinson. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode. And in this week's episode, we are going to take a look at the very, very fabulous Guy Tang. And we're going to break down one of his techniques, a bit like we did in the last video. You may have seen me talking about Brad Mondo's colouring exploits. Now, Guy Tang has, not to my knowledge, ever had a colouring drama. But he definitely does some extremely complicated techniques that he brushes over. I'm going to take a very simple look at the technical elements of what Guy does in this video and break it down into a little bit more detail than Guy tends to provide. So hopefully you're going to take even more learnings from this fantastic hairdresser, Guy Tang. Because Guy, I feel, is very result driven rather than the actual education of the technique. He's more about the product than the technique. And I feel like that Guy doesn't always explain the technique to the best of its ability. So I'm going to amplify what Guy has already done. But before I do that, a few weeks ago, some of you will probably remember that I was giving away these for my birthday giveaway, and that time has come around. I've got everybody's names in here ready to dip my hand in and pick a winner. Drum roll, please. And it is Sharon Mitchells. You are the winner. I will be contacting you on Instagram to get them posted over to you as soon as possible. Thank you for everybody who entered, and there will be more prize draws in the future, but not on this channel. Anyway, I won't talk about that right now, but before I go into the video, I just want to thank everybody who has subscribed, hit that thumbs up button, and chats to me down in the comments every single week. Your comments are massively appreciated as always, and a huge thank you to my Patreons. You guys rock, and there is so much cool stuff coming your way in the near future. So if you want to get involved and become a Patreon of the Life of Hair, there's a link down in the description, and you can join up and be an early adopter to something much bigger than Patreon and a whole new revolution in digital hair education. Have a wonderful week, guys. Look after yourselves, and I shall see you all very, very soon. So Guy decides to lift her base, which I love to do in the salon. I love lifting people's bases and taking their natural colour up 1 or 2 shades before we get going with any lightening processes. And I tend to do this the most though on clients with very, very dark bases or clients that want the least amount of maintenance.
So the first formula I'm going to add in is Naked Glow 8 Permanent Color. It has like a blush gold beige tone, so it makes it very fleshy and unique. So she is going to have a little bit of a natural warmth in her hair. So I'm going to use a little bit of ash to mute that out. And then I'm going to add in 10A, so it's not too dark. And I'm going to mix it with 10 volume. And the reason why I'm going to use 10 volume instead of 20 is because I don't want to over accelerate, over lift the base.
So I'm totally with Guy there in the sense that he is using 10 volume developer to lift the hair. Lots of people believe that 10 volume is deposit only, but in reality it is all about what you mix that 10 volume with. If Guy was mixing that 10 volume with a level 6 colour, he would definitely darken the hair. But when you are using a permanent colour and you are using a peroxide of any strength, you are going to start breaking down the natural colours within the hair. Now what this will tend to do though is in the future you will find that because you've attacked the natural pigments with the permanent colour and they've started to oxidize and break down those natural pigments to replace them with artificial ones, the colour will inevitably end up fading to something warmer than you may have already accounted for in the future. Now, Guy decided to use his level 8 Naked Glow and then added in some a 8-1, 8 ash to that to bring it down again. So effectively, I would imagine it would be the equivalent to putting on an 8-0. Had he have just gone in with one colour, he could have probably just gone in with 8-0 plus 10-0 into the hair. Very, very simple formulation. But because obviously Guy is very product orientated for his brand, he's going in with some new product that he's probably promoting, etc. So when we think about color processing, it doesn't necessarily make sense to put a cool and a warm color together in equal ratios almost. If you're only going to mute it slightly, then that's a different kettle of fish. You're just wanting to take the edge off what you've got existing. Now, you never see consultations with Guy. I'm sure he doesn't even do them with his clients. I don't do that many like formal consultations with existing clients, especially if I've been doing the hair 10 years. You know, there's times where I tell them they need to change and we discuss that, but generally speaking, you know, they just leave it to me. So I can understand where this is going, and I can foresee, you know, that she's just being led by, you know, what Guy needs to do to her hair. Anyway, we'll come back.
We're also going to add Olaplex. Olaplex has a pH of 3.5, and that's going to drop the alkalinity.
The Olaplex does bring down the pH of the colour, like he said, because generally speaking, permanent hair colours pH will be well and above 7 on the pH scale. Now, this is all good and well, but he's already using 10 volume, and obviously this is going to enable him to only get a very, very subtle lift on the hair. As soon as you bring down the alkalinity of the colour, you will lessen the power of the colour in the tube, because it's the colour in the tube that determines the lift. The peroxide really doesn't have a lot to say about what colour, when you're using tint, the hair ends up. Because if I give you a level 6 tint and 30 volume, you would still get darker hair. That 30 volume wouldn't give you 3 levels of lift as we would know it if we were using it with a bleach, a high lift, or even a colour that was 3 levels lighter than the base. And if we're going to mix 30 volume with the level 6, we would end up just reducing the kind of glossy, rich tone a level 6 you would expect. You would probably get something closer to a 7 than a 6 if you're going to mix higher volumes with darker colours. But you're definitely not going to get 3 levels of lift. And that is where we can prove that the power is in the colour and not in the peroxide.
The way I'm going to apply the base formula is right through the mid shaft and feather it right off and avoid that routage. This is going to prevent it from looking too bright at the scalp, so you can leave that natural shadow root.
So Guy there in his technical application was doing a very, very smart move where he was leaving that 1 centimetre away from the scalp with no colour. That is incredibly smart. We saw last week when we watched the episode with Brad Mondo and he just went straight in on the roots and he left himself that band. Guy's avoiding having hot roots by painting that mid-zone first. Now what he doesn't go on to do though is doesn't go on to paint her regrowth. Now personally I would have gone in and painted that regrowth, and he said it's because he wanted to leave a shadow root. But when we see later in the video the toner that he applies, that he puts on a shadow root, it's not so much about leaving a shadow root, it actually completely disappears into the colour that he applies over the top. It's more about him not getting root glow and having to deal with that as another step. So if you're going to put a root shadow on and you know you're going to bring down the colour at the end, then obviously we don't need to go to the trouble of painting to the root. If you wanted to paint to the root though, I think you could have probably got away with it with this particular formulation because of the low vol and the addition of Olaplex bringing down the pH even further. I would be very surprised with a formulation like that he would get any root glow, even if he'd applied it from the root all the way through to the regrowth from the existing lightener from the previous session.
So we're back with lifting Christie's face. You can see that it brought out a little bit of warmth because the hair naturally has warmth as it lifts. That's why we controlled it with 8A, 10A.
So this is exactly what I was saying before about the formulation, and they put the 8A, 10A or 8-1 or whatever you want to ash tone in your range that you use. This is exactly what I was saying about him putting that in there. He's still got a warm result. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure he wanted a warm result, but the 8 Naked Glow was probably a little bit unnecessary when he would have got exactly the same result. I would bet my last pound on it with just an 8-0, because 8-0 is a neutral shade, or an 8N is a neutral shade, and that neutral shade will always give you a little bit of warmth left behind because it doesn't have enough blue tone in it to neutralize all of the undertone as you lift the hair. The neutral shades are all made of red, yellow and blue, and we all know that blue neutralizes orange and yellow is neutralized by violet. So in this particular instance, he could have just gone in with a neutral, natural, and he would have got exactly the same result. And he could have just used 1 tube of colour and not 3. I mean, obviously, he still would have had to have added the 10 in, but even that was probably a step beyond what he actually needed to do. He could have just gone in with a 9, 0s, 9N, happy days, easy job, 10 volume, Olaplex if you want it, job done. Easy, easy, easy. But, you know, when we're looking at what Guy does, and Guy does it amazingly well, he's looking at big results, big techniques, and using products to, you know, like all manufacturers, they want to sell you the products. So he's taking steps to introduce more and more colors into his techniques. You know, can't knock him for it. Maybe I'll have a color range one day and I'll be doing the same thing. This is not in any way, shape or form bashing what he's doing, just like the Brad Mando video. This is just pointing out those very, very obvious steps that he's taking to incorporate things that you may not need to in real life.
I'm going to take a scoop of the Stroke 7 Hybrid Big 9 and put it inside the reservoir so I don't have to re-dip back into the bowl. I start swiping so that way I get minimal product on the bristle. Remember to hold the section very tight. Always apply the product on the mid shaft and then use the remaining product to sweep your way up to blend.
So some fantastic tips there from Guy in terms of the way that he applies the bleach and the tips and the tricks and the techniques that he uses. But let's look at it in a little bit more detail. The tension that he's got on the hair is really, really important. And if you're new to balayage, if you've not been balayaging very long, or you're not very confident with it, having that product on the board like that means that you can gently build up the application. And that is really, really important. Start your application 50% of the way down the hair and gently build up the product as you keep swiping your brush over and over the hair, working your way up towards the scalp and back down towards the ends.
She has some warmer golden parts that I want to lift higher. I actually just swipe the remaining product that's on the paddle and just use minimal product just to paint the surface. That way we don't overlap and cause further damage to these ends.
You can see that what he's done is change his saturation for the ends. He's put less product on, and when you put less product on, you will get less lift. So he's got heavy saturation on the towards up to the root area, so he wants maximum lift in that area. In fact, in a minute you'll see that he'll put a mesh over the root area to enhance the lift. We'll talk about that when it happens. But what he's doing is controlling his saturation. In the darker zone, he's got lots of product, and then he's getting gradually less and less product as he's working towards the lighter ends. Very, very smart play. Not easy to execute in your early days of balayaging, but well worth thinking about as time goes on.
By painting only the surface and leaving the bottom dark, it allows dimension to come through.
Dimension in balayage is so important, guys. It's really, really important that you don't paint tiny little sections all the way through. That's a set of highlights. That's a different kettle of fish. Just be aware that you're leaving enough hair in between that you will get that lovely contrast and dimension in the hair as you go through the technique. The other thing I really like as well is Guy's pre-section, where he's just gently swooping down diagonally across the head as he works his way up to the top. Love that idea. Never tried it myself. Definitely going to be giving this a go, and I will definitely be giving you a review of this particular technique as soon as I've tried it.
I pivot from this side and kind of swoop diagonally going up to her ear, to the right, to the left, to the right, so it kind of crisscrosses on top of one another. If I want additional lift at the routage, you'll see me put a mesh sheet down where her natural hair is. This allows incubation.
So he said the word incubation. Incubation is to trap in heat. But that's not exactly what's happening there. Did a foil video where we looked at the matte side and the shiny side, which one worked better, etc. Lots of people were talking about incubation. Now, incubation can only happen when there's heat either coming from the scalp or off of the body. But the likelihood of incubation on a balayage, well, it's just no heat there to incubate specifically. What you are achieving though is you are preventing the product from drying out. So therefore the product is going to work much longer, because the oxygen getting to that surface of the product to start drying this clay liner out isn't getting there. So it's going to be active for a much longer period of time. And when you're bleaching hair yourself, you need to be aware of that. The damper that you can keep the bleach, the more effective the bleach will be for a longer period of time. If you're in a very dry atmosphere and your product starts to dry out, you will not get the lift you expected. So that's why coverings, when you're doing freehand techniques, will always give you that little boost. I love clean film personally. I don't have any meshes like Guy here, but I love a bit of clean film just to ensure that I'm going to get that maximum lift from my technique.
All right, so as I get to the side, what I want to do is take a diagonal forward section right behind her ear and over direct everything back away.
Great point there. What Guy is talking about is over directing the hair back to the back of the head where he's standing. Over direction always creates softness. When he balayages that hair and pulls it back as it falls down, that is going to create softer, longer ribbons of lightener through the hair, other than taking horizontal sections which give him maximum coverage. Like when he worked up the back, he was using diagonals, which always adds softness. So Guy is using these specific angles to create softness within his techniques.
I'm just going to pack on most of the product right where that harsh darkness is. So I'm going to paint lightly on this area to diffuse them.
So he said it then himself. He's going to pack on the most of the product where the harsh darkness is. So that is where we're talking about control of saturation. Guy is pointing out that he's actually controlling his saturation. He's just not using those words. He's not saying that he's putting more product on and then spreading it thinner towards the ends and thicker towards the roots. He's using different terminologies, which can be a bit vague. And I think that's very indicative of Guy's videos, is that from a technical standpoint, they're a bit vague. So if you're watching this guy and you want some critical analysis of what you do in your videos, beautiful videos as always, but they're very vague in terms of technique. So your viewers might appreciate a little bit more kind of principle-based information, maybe.
Blend. Now that I'm in her front hairline, Christy has a little strong demarcation line, and this is going to be a challenge because it's very stark. I'm going to have to break down the section a little bit thinner. I'm going to paint on the back part of that panel first and then lift her hair up and paint underneath. Feather the remaining product down so it's less product through here. Bring it back down and apply more product on her ends so those ends can brighten up. And then incubate.
So that is Guy's technique all over, and I'm a big fan of doing that around the front hairline there. You will have seen potentially one of my, well, two of my other videos that I do that, elevate that front section up and paint that entire front section. I love that look. It works really well. If you're going to do it like Guy did it and break it down into the sections like that, you want to be really aware that you're going to have quite a strong piece of color in the front there. I usually take that whole section in a oneer and lift it up and paint the front, but he did have a really strong line to deal with, so I can totally see why he went with that option. And actually, on a personal note, I've never tried it in that exact vein. So next time I'm in the salon with that scenario, I will be giving it a go. Thank you, Guy. Now, what happens next in the video is something that I really, really want to talk about. But before we talk about it, let's just watch what happens.
I'm so glad that we got this Uber ride to get to the restaurant. Are you hungry?
So hungry.
So they take an Uber across LA to the mall where he used to have his studio. He bumps into the person who's taking over his studio, blah, blah, blah. They have lunch. They talk about being an influencer and social media and da, 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 da. Her bleach is still on her head. Now, I don't know about you or me, but, you know, when I'm in the client, I've barely got time to run across the road and get a sandwich. So to leave my client with her bleach on her head and drive across LA, get some lunch in a restaurant, you know, wait for it to be delivered, sit there, eat it, talk about being an influencer, chat to your friends, you know, blah, blah. How long has the bleach been on?
Put a little heat on it just so we can process. Actually, you're pretty blonde. Whoa. I just want to push it just a little bit.
So they've been out, had lunch, drove across LA, drove back again, come back to the studio and then put her under heat? Like, what? How long has that bleach been on? I just don't know. I mean, it's got to be longer than an hour, no? It's got to be, I don't know how long it is. It's his product. I'm sure he knows exactly what he's doing with it. But leaving bleach on that long, in my experience, no matter what manufacturer you're using, no matter what bonder you're using in it, you are going to create some serious damage. Because no matter what you say about it, no matter what you add into your lightener, bleach breaks down the natural fibers of the hair to do its job. It blows holes into the cuticles, it breaks down proteins. The longer you leave it on, the more damage you do. This bit I was just shocked about. Anyway, this guy Tang can do what he likes. Now I'm just going to stop here very, very quickly and just talk to you about where he's dragged the colour to. Now he's in the back, dragged it really far down. And that's great because that's going to give him some depth and dimension, etc. But in the front, you will see that he has taken his root shadow past the parietal ridge, the ridge that runs along the head just above the ear. So ultra important. I've talked about it in every root stretch video I've ever made. It is absolutely critical that you bring that root color down past the parietal ridge. End of story.
Naked Glow 9. I'm actually going to use 2 tubes of Naked Glow 9 because I'm going to add Crystal Clear to the remaining formula. Apply Naked Glow 9 through the mid shaft, but I'm making sure to leave out the ends because we want to add Crystal Clear to the ends formula. I'm going to leave the face frame out as well to add Crystal Clear to the ends formula. We finished applying the second formula. Now, with the remaining color of Naked Glow 9 in the bowl, I'm going to add Crystal Clear into this formula.
So putting that Crystal Clear into the end formula to dilute it further, to make it lighter in tone. Anyway, we're about to see the finished look and I love the way they've filmed the end of this. I know Guy hasn't filmed this, he's got his cameramen to do it. He's obviously got a couple of cameramen on the go. And they put this warm hue over the video and they make it look all autumnal and beautiful. It's really well done at the end. So good job, Guy. I really like what you did with the end of this video. And I'll let it roll out so you can see the finished result. And if you like these episodes, then please do let me know in the comments down below. I quite enjoy making them. It's just a nice change for me, you know, to make some different type of content. Lots of people like the Brad Mondo video from last week. They left it in the comments, you know, enjoying the fact that I'd commentated or reacted to Brad's video. So if you've enjoyed this one, do let me know. It won't be the bulk of my content, that's for sure. But for now, I'll probably make a few more just for fun. Just because I like watching hair videos probably as much as you do. Have a lovely week. Enjoy the rest of this video and I shall see you in the next one.